Okay, hey, we're into the third body paragraph of our unit on we the future, being the ancestors we want to be, and really looking at the challenges into doing that. We first started out with, let's take an overview really quick here. We first started out with what type of ancestor do you want to become? Yeah. And you wrote that in your first introductory paragraph, and you can edit that anytime you want. As we moved down, we moved into how is digitimacy a challenge to you becoming the ancestor you want to be? Then our second body paragraph is how is the Internet of Everything a challenge to you becoming the ancestor you want to be? Government and corporate surveillance states, so to speak. And then right now, this is where we are now. And that is how our future job trends challenge you becoming the ancestor you want to be. So really kind of thinking about, the future of jobs and what kind of positions do you think would fit the ancestor you want to be. But really, first, you have to look at the challenges that are out there, the challenges as well as opportunities. So let's get started. Yeah, so obviously this is all about how well you can write. So I sort of give you as much as I can, try to find as much as I can in a concise format information. So here's your information sources. You'll be doing a dialectic journal this time, a little bit different than the juicy sentence format, but almost exactly the same. So we're going to be looking at two documentaries. One in the age of AI, that's artificial intelligence. And that is produced by PBS, their Frontline series, and it's 2019. You can actually click on this and go straight there if you want to get more information, because I'll be providing some clips of that. Then also we'll be moving into sort of a podcast series sort of thing. Degrees of Freedom by which was produced in 2022. Actually, I think it got published in May. Oh, maybe it was March. Anyway, yeah. If you want to know what is, I'm using this app right now. And it is free for me. So I wonder what data they're collecting. I might be in trouble. Okay, so what are you going to be doing? You'll be finding quotes as normal, writing the source of each quote, whether it's the actual documentary itself or whether it's a person speaking or whether they're quoting somebody. You'll be explaining the meaning of that quote, especially if you can, the importance of it too. And then what does the quote indicate as a challenge or opportunity of a future job trend, especially towards you, towards humans itself, society, or specifically you. Okay, so go ahead and open this worksheet up, Google Classroom, and let's get that documentary going, and let's get some quotes to really give a good perspective on the challenge that the future holds in terms of job trends. Okay, so we're talking ancestors here. We're really trying to become ancestors, but there's all sorts of things in our way. And this guy right here, Kai-Fu Lee, might want to write his name down. He is awesome. He just states it like it is. Later, he becomes like super scary. But yeah, right now he states it like it is. So let's get into the debate of this issue about future job trends and what we need to do to figure out how we are going to, maintain who we want to be when we really have to do lots of shifts around employment.
The AI future was built with great optimism out here in the West. In 2018, many of the people who invented it gathered in San Francisco to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the industry magazine.
Howdy, welcome to Wire 25.
It is a celebration for sure, but there's also a growing sense of caution and even skepticism.
We're having a really good weekend here.
Nick Thompson is editor-in-chief of Wired.
When it started, it was very much a magazine about what's coming and why you should be excited about it. Optimism was the defining feature of Wired for many, many years, or as our slogan used to be, change is good. And over time, it's shifted a little bit. And now it's more, we love technology, but let's look at some of the big issues, and let's look at some of them critically. And let's look at the way algorithms are changing the way we behave for good and for ill. So the whole nature of Wired has gone from a champion of technological change to more of a observer of technological change.
So, before we start,
There are 25 speakers, all named as icons of the last 25 years of technological progress.
why is Apple so secretive?
Joni Ive, who designed Apple's iPhone,
It would be bizarre not to be.
There's this question of what are we doing here in this life, in this reality?
Jaron Lanier, who pioneered virtual reality,
Cutting edge of the next.
and Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.
Amazon was a garage startup. Now it's a very large company. Two kids in a dorm.
His message is, all will be well in the new world.
I guess, first of all, I remain incredibly optimistic about technology. And technologies always are two-sided, but that's not new. That's always been the case. And we will figure it out. The last thing we'd ever want to do is stop the progress of new technologies, even when they are dual use.
But, says Thompson, beneath the surface, there's a worry most of them don't like to talk about.
There are some people in Silicon Valley who believe that you just have to trust the technology. Throughout history, there's been a complicated relationship between humans and machines. We've always worried about machines. It's always been fine. And we don't know how AI will change the labor force, but it will be okay. So that argument exists. There's another argument, which is what I think most of them believe deep down, which is this is different. We're going to have labor force disruption like we've never seen before. And if that happens, will they blame us?
There is, however, one of the Wired 25 icons willing to take on the issue. On stage, Kai-Fu Lee dispenses with one common fear.
Well, I think there's so many myths out there. I think one myth is that because AI is so good at a single task, that one day we'll wake up and we'll all be enslaved or forced to plug our brains to the AI. But it is nowhere close to displacing humans.
But in interviews around the event and beyond, he takes a decidedly contrarian position on AI and job loss.
The AI giants want to paint the rosier picture because they're happily making money. So I think they prefer not to talk about the negative side. I believe about 50% of jobs will be somewhat or extremely threatened by AI in the next 15 years or so.
Kai-Fu Lee also makes a great deal of money from AI. What separates him from most of his colleagues is that he's frank about its downside.
Yes, we've made about 40 investments in AI. I think based on these 40 investments, most of them are not impacting human jobs. They're creating value, making high margins, inventing a new model. But I could list 7 or 8 that would lead to a very clear displacement of human jobs.
He says that AI is coming, whether we like it or not, and he wants to warn society about what he sees as inevitable.
You have a view which I think is different than many others, which is that AI is not going to take blue-collar jobs so quickly, but is actually going to take white-collar jobs.
Yeah. Well, both will happen. AI will be, at the same time, a replacement for blue-collar, white-collar jobs, and be a great symbiotic tool for doctors, lawyers, and you, for example. But the white-collar jobs are easier to take because they're a pure quantitative analytical process. Let's say reporters, traders, telemarketing, telesales, customer service. analysts, yes, these can all be replaced just by a software. To do blue collar, some of the work requires, hand-eye coordination, things that machines are not yet good enough to do.
Today, there are many people who are ringing the alarm. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Half the jobs are going away. I believe that's true. But here's the missing fact. I've done the research on this, and if you go back 20, 30, or 40 years ago, you will find that 50% of the jobs that people performed back then are gone today. Where are all the telephone operators, bowling pin setters, elevator operators? They used to have seas of secretaries in corporations that have now been eliminated, travel agents. You can just go through field after field after field. That same pattern has recurred many times throughout history with each new wave of automation.
But I would argue that history is only trustable if it is multiple repetitions of similar events, not once in a blue moon occurrence. So over the history of many tech inventions, most are small things. Only maybe 3 are at the magnitude of AI revolution. The steam engine, electricity, and the computer revolution. I'd say everything else is too small. And the reason I think it might be something brand new is that AI is fundamentally replacing our cognitive process in doing a job in its significant entirety. And it can do it dramatically better.
What? Did Kai-Fu Lee just say IA, artificial intelligence, is replacing our cognitive process? We're going to need to hear from Andrew McAfee on this from MIT. Great university, by the way.
In the age of AI, the algorithms are transporting us into a universe of vast potential and transforming almost every aspect of human endeavor and experience. Andrew McAfee is a research scientist at MIT who co-authored The Second Machine Age.
The great compliment that a songwriter gives another one is, gosh, I wish I'd written that one. The great compliment a geek gives another one is, wow, I wish I had drawn that graph. So I wish I had drawn this graph.
The graph uses a formula to show human development and growth since 2000 BCE.
The state of human civilization is not very advanced, and it's not getting better very quickly at all. And this is true for thousands and thousands of years. When we formed empires and empires got overturned, when we tried democracy, when we invented zero and mathematics and fundamental discoveries about the universe, big deal. The numbers don't change very much. What's weird is that the numbers change essentially in the blink of an eye at one point in time, and it goes from really horizontal, unchanging, uninteresting, to holy Toledo, crazy vertical. And then the question is, what on earth happened to cause that change? And the answer is the Industrial Revolution. There were other things that happened, but really what fundamentally happened is we overcame the limitations of our muscle power. Something equally interesting is happening right now. We are overcoming the limitations of our minds. We're not getting rid of them, we're not making them unnecessary, but holy cow, can we leverage them and amplify them now? You have to be a huge pessimist not to find that profoundly good news.
I really do think the world has entered a new era. Artificial intelligence holds so much promise, but it's going to reshape every aspect of the economy, so many aspects of our lives, because AI is a little bit like electricity. Everybody's going to use it. Every company is going to be incorporating AI, integrating it into what they do. Governments are going to be using it. Nonprofit organizations are going to be using it. It's going to create all kinds of benefits in ways large and small, and challenges for us as well.
The challenges, the benefits.
Did Andrew McAfee say that we're overcoming the limitations of our minds? Wow. Okay. And he did not say, but he implied through artificial intelligence. Let's turn to Joshua Bengio. I mean, you're gonna hear about a 24-year-old CEO before him, but let's turn to Yoshua Bengio to help us understand what are we talking about. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Using artificial to overcome the limitations of our mind, and especially regarding the job trends in the future. And does that mean that some of us are going to go and some of us are going to stay? What does that exactly mean? And why is Yoshua maybe an expert in this field? Well, let's take a look. He's from the University of Montreal, Canada, which is, okay, professor, and some professors are great, some professors are bad, but look over here. Oh my God. He's been cited 455, well, my finger doesn't go all the way over there, 455,000 times since 2017. I guess a lot of people definitely declare him as an expert. So let's hear from the CEO, 24 CEO, and then Yoshua.
On an interstate in the U.S. Southwest, artificial intelligence is at work solving the problem that's become emblematic of the new age, replacing a human driver. This is the company's CEO, 24-year-old Alex Rodriguez.
The more things we build successfully, the less people ask questions about how old you are when you have working trucks.
And this is what he's built. Commercial goods are being driven from California to Arizona on Interstate 10. There is a driver in the cab, but he's not driving. It's an ambitious goal, but only possible because of the recent breakthroughs in deep learning.
Artificial intelligence is one of those key pieces that has made it possible now to do driverless vehicles where it wasn't possible 10 years ago, particularly in the ability to see and understand scenes. A lot of people don't know this, but it's remarkably hard for computers until very, very recently to do even the most basic visual tasks, like seeing a picture of a person and knowing that it's a person. And we've made gigantic strides with artificial intelligence in being able to see and understanding tasks, and that's obviously fundamental to being able to understand the world around you with the sensors that you have available.
That's now possible because of the algorithms written by Yoshua Bengio and a small group of scientists.
There are many aspects of the world which we can't explain with words. And that part of our knowledge is actually probably the majority of it. So like the stuff we can communicate verbally is the tip of the iceberg. And so to get at the bottom of the iceberg, the solution was the computers have to acquire that knowledge by themselves from data, from examples, just like children learn, most not from their teachers, but from interacting with the world and playing around and trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
This is an early demonstration. In 2013, DeepMind scientists set a machine learning program on the Atari video game Breakout. The computer was only told the goal to win the game. After 100 games, it learned to use the bat at the bottom to hit the ball and break the bricks at the top. After 300, it could do that better than a human player. After 500 games, it came up with a creative way to win the game by digging a tunnel on the side and sending the ball around the top to break many bricks with one hit. That was deep learning.
That's the AI program based on learning, really, that has been so successful in the last few years and it wasn't clear 10 years ago that it would work, but it has completely changed the map and is now used in almost every sector of society.
Even the best and brightest among us, we just don't have enough compute power inside of our heads.
Amy Webb is a professor at NYU and founder of the Future Today Institute.
As AI progresses, the great promise is that these machines alongside of us are able to think and imagine and see things in ways that we never have before, which means that maybe we have some kind of new, weird, seemingly implausible solution to climate change. Maybe we have some radically different approach to dealing with incurable cancers. The real practical and wonderful promise is that machines help us be more creative. And using that creativity, we get to terrific solutions.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to go through a lot of on-the-ground stuff. How does this relate to on the ground? We're going to start out with Molly Kinder, Senior Fellow at New America. Look that up online to catch their validity, since if you decide to quote them. And hopefully you have about half the quotes done by now, maybe a little bit more, not all of them. If you do, try to find another piece of paper to go ahead and quote, because you have some pretty doozies coming up. It's a little bit going on the dark side here now on terms of challenges, so you might want to get some good quotes going.
It's the future of this, not the past, that scares me, because I think we're in the early decades of what is a multi-decade adjustment period.
The world is being reimagined. This is a supermarket. Robots guided by AI pack everything from soap powder to cantaloupes for online consumers. Machines that pick groceries, machines that can also read reports, learn routines, and comprehend, are reaching deep into factories, stores, and offices. At a college in Goshen, Indiana, a group of local business and political leaders come together to try to understand the impact of AI and the new machines. Molly Kinder studies the future of work at a Washington think tank.
How many people have gone into a fast food restaurant and done a self-ordering? Anyone? Yes? Panera, for instance, is doing this. Cashier was my first job, and in where I live in Washington, D.C., it's actually the #1 occupation for the greater D.C. region. There are millions of people who work in cashier positions. This is not a futuristic challenge. This is something that's happening sooner than we think. In the popular discussions about robots and automation and work, almost every image is of a man on a factory floor or a truck driver. And yet, in our data, when we looked, women disproportionately hold the jobs that today are at highest risk of automation. And that's not really being talked about. And that's in part because women are overrepresented in some of these marginalized occupations, like a cashier or a fast food worker, and also in large numbers in clerical jobs in offices, HR departments, payroll, finance. A lot of that is more routine, processing information, processing paper, transferring data. That has huge potential for automation. AI is going to do some of that. Software robots are going to do some of that. So how many people are still working as switchboard operators? Probably none in this country.
The workplace of the future will demand different skills, and gaining them, says Molly Kinder, will depend on who can afford them.
I mean, it's not a good situation in the United States. There's been some excellent research that says that half of Americans couldn't afford a $400 unexpected expense. And if you want to get to $1,000, there's even less. So imagine you're going to go out without a month's pay, 2 months' pay, a year. Imagine you want to put savings toward a course to redevelop your career. People can't afford to take time off of work. They don't have a cushion. So this lack of economic stability married with the disruptions in people's careers is a really toxic mix.
The new machines will penetrate every sector of the economy, from insurance companies to human resource departments, from law firms to the trading floors of Wall Street.
Wall Street's going through it, but every industry is going through it. Every company is looking at all of the disruptive technologies. Could be robotics or drones or blockchain. And whatever it is, every company is using everything that's developed, everything that's disruptive, and thinking about how do I apply that to my business to make myself more efficient. And what efficiency means is mostly how do I do this with fewer workers. And I do think that when we look at some of the studies about opportunity in this country and the inequality of opportunity, the likelihood that you won't be able to advance from where your parents were, I think that's is very serious and gets to the heart of the way we like to think of America as the land of opportunity.
Inequality has been rising in America. It used to be the top 1% of earners, here in red, owned a relatively small portion of the country's wealth. Middle and lower earners, in blue, had the largest share. Then, 15 years ago, the lines crossed, and inequality has been increasing ever since.
There's many factors that are driving inequality today, and unfortunately, artificial intelligence, without being thoughtful about it, is a driver for increased inequality because it's a form of automation, and automation is the substitution of capital for labor. And when you do that, the people with the capital win. So Karl Marx was right. It's a struggle between capital and labor. And with artificial intelligence, we're putting our finger on the scale on the side of capital and how we wish to distribute the benefits, the economic benefits that will create is going to be a major moral consideration for society over the next several decades.
This is really an outgrowth of the increasing gaps of haves and have-nots. The wealthy getting wealthier, the poor getting poorer. It may not be specifically related to AI, but but AI will exacerbate that, and that I think will tear the society apart because the rich will have just too much, and those who are have-nots will have perhaps very little way of digging themselves out of the hole. And with AI making its impact, it'll be worse, I think.
Wow, that information on inequality was seriously heavy, especially regarding job skills and the need to gain those job skills before you just don't have the money to do so. But let's not forget the impact this is definitely going to be having on women and the jobs that are majorly, at least majority, women. So hopefully you got quite a few quotes here, and as well as you got your meaning. Well, you can do the meaning, you can do the challenge and opportunity later, but main thing is getting the quotes during this time. But there is a little bit more to go. Remember, I did talk about somebody coming in pretty not very nice, and so we're going to take a look at that, and then we'll end this episode of getting you information for your essays with a positive note, at least for some workers.
Hi, I'm Kai-Fu.
Dr. Lee.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Chili, nice to meet you.
Yes.
Look at all these dog ears. I love that.
Like that?
But I don't like you didn't buy the book. You borrowed it.
I couldn't find it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And you're coming to my talk?
Of course.
Oh, hi.
I did my homework, I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Laurie, can you get this gentleman a book?
In his book and in life, the computer scientist come venture capitalist walks a careful path. Criticism of the Chinese government is avoided, while capitalist success is celebrated.
Electrical engineering. Sure, yeah. Send me a resume. Okay, thanks.
Now, with the rise of the two superpowers, he wants to warn the world of what's coming.
Are you the new leaders?
If we're not the new leaders, we're pretty close. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Never, he writes, has the potential for human flourishing been higher, or the stakes of failure greater.
So if one has to say who's ahead, I would say today, China is quickly catching up. China actually began its big push in AI only 2.5 years ago, when the AlphaGo Lee Sedol match became the Sputnik moment.
He says he believes that the two AI superpowers should lead the way and work together to make AI a force for good. If we do, we may have a chance of getting it right.
If we do a very good job in the next 20 years, AI will be viewed as an age of enlightenment. our children and their children will see AI as serendipity, that AI is here to liberate us from having to do routine jobs and push us to do what we love and push us to think what it means to be human.
Okay, so Kai-Fu Lee comes back in with a punch. Yeah, wow. Okay, a little scary there. Major implications about what he's saying. Number one, that mundane jobs will be eliminated. Wow, okay. And then the big one is that two superpowers that he's proposing that they get together is going to push you to figuring to knowing what it means to be human. Now that goes back to our second body paragraph about the about governmental and corporate surveillance and using of our data. So you don't need to talk about that, but it's pretty scary. Pushing. Okay. All right, so we're going to move into something a little more positive, although we had some positives, we had some potentials earlier, and we had some major challenges earlier also. So maybe your quote margin is filled up, but you might want to at least add this one last one. It's about distributive workforce. So we're going to hear from the CEO of whose app I'm using right now, and there he is. And let's go ahead and slide up a little bit to get his name because I don't think it comes up. Phil Libin, right here, CEO, and Brittany Gallagher is the interviewer. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move into distributive, not leadership, workforce. So, and how that might be a nice side benefit or nice, maybe that might even work for you as being where you're, the answers you're trying to become might be able to work well in here, or maybe you thought of something way more exact for where you can fit in the future 8 to 10 years from now, 10 to 15 years from now. All right, here we go.
Distributed work, and I would love to know what your definition is and how you define distributed work.
Well, I think I was always really skeptical. I would say borderline hostile. I would say fully hostile to the concept of, working from home, people working remotely. I always thought, we need to have a strong office culture, and that means having a strong office. That means seeing people in person, turns out I was wrong about all that stuff. So I think distributed work, and really the distributed world that we're trying to build right now, is one where people just have a lot more freedom to decide when they work and where they work and how they work and how they live and where they live. It's really being able to decide to work where you can have the best job and to live where you can have the best life, and to do that, make those two decisions independently of each other.
So, when we talk about distributed work, we don't necessarily mean like fully working from home, right? You're not, what a lot of people struggled with during the pandemic, and it's depending on where you were, both geographically and socioeconomically, you had to all of a sudden work from home. And now your house, your kitchen becomes your office. Your kids are home and you're your partner, and it's difficult. So when we talk about distributed work, what you're doing at how does it work?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of us make is we conflate distributed work and distributed life with what happened during the beginning of the pandemic. And it's not the same thing. I think so many of us have, basically PTSD from the first few months or the first year or whatever of COVID, where you were forced to be in your apartment, not seeing any other humans other than whoever happened to already be living there, in a tiny place for a lot of people with screaming children and no setup. But that's not out of office work. That's like an emergency response where we weren't prepared and we all had to go and work from home. And that was terrible. I think it was terrible for me and for a lot of people. But now we've had 2 years. That's not what distributed is right now. I don't work from home that much. I do I work from home maybe a quarter of the time, but I work from here. I work from Crystal Bridges, I work from coffee shops, I walk around a lot. I choose where I want to work depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. So if I want to have some creative thoughts, like I'll do it walking around the museum, either by myself or with a couple of people in the team when they come over. That turns out that's working for the museum is much better for creative work than like sitting in an office in a conference room. If I just want to be alone quietly, there's plenty of places, for that. So like I choose during the day a few different environments of where I want to be. And sometimes it's home and sometimes it's not. And it's far better. Obviously, it's not only better than working out of my apartment. It's far better than working out of an office, because the office was always like the lowest common denominator. Like it was never ideal for anything. It was just like, it's just where you were.
You got excited if there was a snake plant in the room. You're like, oh, there's some life in here. It's not.
Or a snake.
You got real excited.
Either-
or when a
either
bird
way.
flew into the conference window.
But now, like, I can work from wherever, and anyone can in companies like this, right? So if your dream was to, work for a few decades and then retire so that you can like live on the beach and surf, well, why wait a few decades? Why not do it now? Go live on a beach while you have your job. It's fine. In fact, that sort of challenges the whole concept of like, well, let's struggle and sacrifice when you're young. That doesn't make sense. Just do it now. And you don't have to give up your job if you have the right kind of job, the job that does this. So, like, it isn't about work. Like, yes, a lot of us had very difficult environments for a few months after COVID because we weren't prepared for it. But you can prepare. You can really design the environment or the environments to be ideal. But I think. I do still think that in a lot of people's minds, like distributed work means
Remote work. Work from home. Yeah.
remote work from home, and it's that uncertainty because there's still a lot of companies who are screwing around with employees, being like, well, maybe we'll go back to the office 3 days a week, and maybe we'll do it starting in November. That's inhumane.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to people? Like you can't make plans. You can't decide where you want to live. One of the things that I think we did right. Few things that I think we really did right in our company was pretty early on. I think by May of 2020, we just told people like, we will not call you back to the office. Just, this is the way it's going to be. Live where you want to live. We're not going to reduce your salaries. Just because I wanted to give people that confidence that at least in something they had some certainty. Now, there was no promise the company was going to survive. We're glad that we did. But like, at least people didn't have to like, for years now, think about, well, should I change how my kids are in school? Like, what does all this mean? Like, it was at least something. So, yeah, I think we all need to get over that shock that we had during the pandemic, and like we learned the wrong lessons from that.
Okay, news flash. Distributive work. That's what Alliance Home Office does now. There is actually no home office. Our home office used to be in downtown on a floor of a very, very expensive skyrise, and who knows how much that cost. It must have been an insane amount of money. And now they're all at home, or in a coffee shop, or in a museum walking around. But every now and then they meet at one of our defunct middle schools. Middle school number 5, gone. But the space is still there, so they meet there every now and then. It also reminds me of my wife, and one of her clients is moving to Bali. Oh my God, island paradise. Because she's an editor of movies, articles, etc. She can work anywhere in the world, which is amazing. As well as my friend, Dustin, who... it was a teacher here at Alliance and assistant principal, moved back to Chicago, and basically can do his work anywhere because basically he is creating video content, video lessons for students, and then they can hook up with him via Zoom, etc. But basically everything is online. I don't know about that, but okay. Yeah, I think I need to be in person with students, and I think Dustin does too. But anyway, but it might be the future of all those professions. So this brings you to sort of a positive take for some of our workforce, that you could be a distributive employee. where you can live where you want and to get your job done, but not all of us. So I just want to leave it on a positive note. And hopefully you have all of your quotes, your quote margins. You have every quote you need, and hopefully I'm sure I did, to pause this video multiple times so your teams could discuss and come up with the meaning of every quote, as well as how the quote represents some sort of challenge or opportunity for your job prospects in the future and your place in the future when you are trying to maintain the ancestor you're trying to become. Okay, well, see you in the classroom. And that's it for this episode and of this essay, which is becoming the future you, the ancestor you want to become.